he is involved in the most important fight that a British fighter's ever been involved in. Bar none. 4 belts on the line. First time this century it's happened. For a Brit to do this, to bring these belts back to our little island, after Lennox has done it, after Frank Bruno's done it, this is something extra special.
Frank, it's very kind of you, Queensberry and TNT to get us Lennox Lewis this week, because he doesn't tire himself around on YouTube channels. When he speaks, we all tune in and listen, and it really feels that if, hopefully in your case, Tyson Fury is the next undisputed champ, he gets the belts from a real icon and a British legend like Lennox.
And I agree with that entirely. It's an honour for us to have him, to be honest, and he's been quite insightful, and for me sitting down, obviously like yourself, we're boxing nuts, aren't we? And you talk to him and getting his view of the fight, I thought was, and it coincided with how I felt about the fight as well, except for the end.
Listen, we are a small country. For the 2 undisputed heavyweight world champions in a span of 25 years to both be from our little isles, it's a pretty incredible feat.
It was phenomenal. I mean, I grew up when I was a kid, and it was like Henry Cooper, go to Joe Bugner, Brian London, all those guys went and fought for world titles, and none of them won. Was it Dorothy Parker? Her famous quote was that if you laid out all the British heavyweights from end to end, she wouldn't be surprised. And you look at where we are now, our little island. I mean, we're a major force in world boxing for heavyweights. I mean, the guys coming through. We've had the amount of champions we've had. Certainly over the last 25 years or so, has been phenomenal. When you thought it all came from America, and then it shifted over to Eastern Europe, so we're in a good place. And you look at Usyk, who's probably the best. I make Tyson the best heavyweight in the world. You look at Usyk being the second best, and both of them having the perfect records. These 2 guys are. They're going to put something on. I think very, very special, because they've trained so hard for this. And you look at when it was the USSR, how they would go for the Olympics, for example, and the choice they had from all the different states that have become from the former sort of Soviet Union. You look at that. Whereas us, we still plodded along our little island, and we delivered the goods, and we've done brilliantly over the years.
I can't be too hypocritical about the little fracas on Monday, because it did great numbers and our newspaper headlines were all over it. What I do think is wonderful is when that bell goes, all of that will be totally forgotten, and all the silly comments, and I think it's so magnificent. I also think that I can't see this fight being won on one huge knockout punch in the same way maybe when Lennox suffered 2 defeats. They've both got great chins, they're both undefeated, they're both so talented. I can only see this being a long and magnificent boxing event.
Well, I agree with you up to a point. People underestimate the power that Tyson had, and you've seen him in a couple of his fights. For example, against Deontay, when he took some great shots himself, he had to get off the floor in the last one and the first one. But you look at the power he's got. You look at what he did with Dillian Whyte. I mean, he never was not at the races with him. And that uppercut was phenomenal. And that's what he does. He finds a way to make out. He looks for the shots. He's a great boxing technician, and he's changed his style over the years. Because when he fought Klitschko, who was the best of his generation, he gave him a boxing lesson. When he fought Wilder, the first one was it was boxing, and obviously he just lost that weight. Or not all the weight, but he was carrying a bit of weight. And he done a job. I thought he won the fight until he got clipped, or even though he got clipped in the last round and got off the floor, I thought he won it. But the second fight brought in Sugar Hill, changed his style completely, went on the offence, and did what he did. And he's capable of doing that. This fight is, you got, as you say, you've got 2 guys who are both undefeated, both the best at what they do. Usyk got the most impeccable record, gold medalist, best as the amateurs. The best cruiserweight of his generation, unified all the belts. 4.5 years now as a heavyweight. Unbeaten our own AJ, not once but twice, and outboxed him. When you thought the smaller guy would struggle with someone who's got the better reach and so forth, he was out jabbing AJ, certainly in that first fight. So I think from their technical brains are superb. They're both real good boxing. It's like chess matches in some ways with them. They've got that mentality. But I think with Tyson, he can go and fight when he wants to. He can go and get in the trenches and do it. And I've seen him do it. And I've seen him, give his all. And I just feel that out of bad comes good. And that injury he got, which was at the end of his sparring, more or less at the end of the camp that postponed the fight. Once he got the new date, he took a couple of weeks off because he had to, you don't want to be, he was nigh on peak and he's got to bring himself down a bit. And he went back into the second camp without having to shift any weight as such. And you got to look at him. He's glowing. I've never seen him look like this at all since I've been with him. I've never seen him like facially, how well he looks, his body, his weight's good, which means there's going to be speed there. He's got the power, he's got everything, but the speed will be there. And he's quite, for a big guy, a very big guy who looks in some ways you would think would be a bit ungainly, like George Foreman type of thing. He's not. He's very light on his feet, he's got fast hands, he can switch hit. As I said, he's got a good chin and he can punch. And he's got a great jab, either southpaw or orthodox. And he's in with somebody equally as good. But I just feel I feel on the night it's going to be his fight. And what Lennox and I were talking about was that how we see it ended. And I genuinely do feel I see Tyson stopping.
Where's he got the tan from? Because that's not Morecambe Bay. Is there going to be sunbed fees coming on your purse?
I'm sure he's probably been in there. I'm not sure where he's got it. He's been out here for a couple of weeks now. Who knows? But he just looks so well, and and mentally as well. He's got bipolar. He suffers from bipolar. He has his ups and downs, which sometimes I get a bit annoyed with some of the press he gets, where I'm retiring, which he means. He got up that morning and wants to retire. And I get phone calls, he's retired. I said, he's retired. And then I think it's about 3 months later, I'm back in, I want to be fighting again. He spoke to me. Because that's how he felt. And he has the right to say that. Don't start, he's leading people on. He's not. That's how he felt in the moment. And people should appreciate that. And I think for someone who's had his problems, his mental health problems, where he's been from the worst depths of despair to be suicidal. And my younger brother, Mark, who's no longer with us, my younger brother committed suicide. And and I think how bad must it be for somebody that they're in so much pain that the only way they can stop that pain is to take their life. So to be like that is tough, but to come back from it and work back, he deserves major accolades for that. And I think he's been a great ambassador for mental health and so forth. And as much as some of the silly things that are said and people want to pick on and whatever and do these little sound bites, and people are, sometimes things have been said that weren't him. It was him saying it, but it was something that was, say this or do that. And people pick up on it, and I can understand why they do that. But he's not a bad person. Tyson Fury is a good person. He's a good bloke. He's a decent bloke. He's approachable. The fans love him. And I think that's where a lot of people get it wrong as well. The fans love him. 3 #1 books. Netflix series that I think is the most watched show in Britain. Box office record for Wembley, not for boxing, for everything. Box office record. There's a queue of 400,000 people wanting to buy tickets.
After the first Wilder fight, he did a tour when he first started working with Spencer Brown.
Yeah.
And I went to 2 of them because they coincided with other fights, one in maybe Wales, one in Newcastle. And there were grown men, bald, little fat fellas like me, all gruff and angry. And when they got up to have a chance to speak to a man in 2 different major cities, I watched them break down and say how watching him and how he came back saved their life. So, and that's not in front of cameras. That's a dinner, private dinner.
And that is, and we've had, obviously because we promote him, we have, stacks of mail coming in for him, and they asked us to, we vet some of it because you only get nutty letters in there, but you get, and you see the inspiration and he's, we forward him on, and he answers them. And he goes back to people, and that is something else. But he is involved in the most important fight that a British fighter's ever been involved in. Bar none. 4 belts on the line. First time this century it's happened. It's certainly the richest fight any Brit's been involved with, and I'm quite sure one of the richest, if maybe in the world at the time. But he's in there. So for a Brit to do this, to bring these belts back to our little island, after Lennox has done it, after Frank Bruno's done it, you look at Herbie Hyde. I mean, I was involved in all of those guys, except for Lennox. Looking at all those, this is something extra special, and he's capable of doing it, and he's proud of being a Brit. I mean, he's proud. He's a traveller. He's a gypsy. He's proud of that. He's proud of his heritage. He's proud of being a Brit, and I think that's great for all of us, and as a nation, that we can get behind him. And as you say, there's a couple of stupid things happen. People get caught up in all this. The camps get caught up in it, and thankfully everybody apologised of the incident. But that's not what the fight's about. The fight is a magnificent fight. This fight is something that boxing's been waiting for a long time, and it's not an older guy fighting. It's not like the new kid on the block fighting the older guy who's maybe over the hill passing the baton on. They are at their prime, and that very rarely happens. Both at their prime, so we're going to get something extra special.
I know I'm getting a little bit greedy on behalf of British boxing fans, and I know that Saudi Arabia and Turkey al-Sheikh, hold the keys to all this stuff happening. But if Tyson Fury is undisputed heavyweight world champion on Sunday, and there are guys like Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois around, and people like yourself ready to make these fights, could British fight fans cling on to the long shot idea that, unlike Lennox, who won it in America and then gave a belt up and never defended undisputed, that possibly the way things move, we could see an undisputed heavyweight world title fight in Britain, thanks to Tyson?
I don't know really, because there's a rematch clause. So the fact there's a rematch clause, and it's lucrative for the loser and for the winner, but the loser has the right to call it on, and I'm quite sure it will be called on. I'd be very surprised if it's not. I don't see the governing bodies, and they've already said this, a couple of them, that they will allow their belts to go on the line. They will conform with their mandatory having to fight for the title. So that may not happen. We will see, but there's a big fight happening on the 5v5 on the 1st of June. We got our man in there, Dangerous Dan Dubois in there, and he's fighting Hrgovic, who again is an undefeated fighter, good quality fighter. The winner of that, who knows, maybe when we're doing this big show at Wembley, we might get another world title fight on there. Who knows? I'd like to see that happen. In the meantime, Saturday, focusing on Saturday, looking at what it is. It's not just a boxing event. This is a major sporting event. This is something that comes along, at the moment, once in a century. And if you look at it, you think, and I look at the heavyweights. I think when I was a kid, when I was growing up, going back to the old ones who I didn't see before I was born, like Dempsey's, the Tunnys, all these great fighters from yesteryear, Johnny O'Sullivan's, go back to all those old things. You go back to Marciano, Joe Louis, you look at Muhammad Ali, Foreman, Frazier, then you can go on and look to, like you say, Lennox, Mike Tyson, all that. All those fellas, when they were champions of the world, were probably the most famous sportsmen in the world at the time, of all sportsmen. And the winner of this fight, because this is going worldwide, there's been a massive marketing campaign around the world for it. The winner of this is probably going to be one of the most, if not the most famous sportsmen in the world.